set out on a narrow way many years ago, hoping I would find true love along the broken road. But I got lost a time or two, wiped my brow and kept pushing through. I couldn't see how every sign pointed straight to you, that every long lost dream led me to where you are. Others who broke my heart, they were like northern stars, pointing me on my way.
Hello, this is a documentary about Shannon Ellis, teacher at Metro High School for the past 15 years. Shannon has many different experiences over time, and today we would like to share a few of those with you.
How's it going, Shannon?
Hey, things are going pretty good.
I just have a few questions for you today.
All right.
Can you tell us a little about what your childhood was like?
Yeah. So I was born in 1964 in Amarillo, Texas. My brother, he's 11 months older than I am. So my brother and I were pretty much it for the first 10 years, because my sister comes along much later. But we grew up in a military family. My dad was in the Air Force. And so as a kid, it's that funny thing about how your memories come along. I look back and I think about what I remember as a kid in my childhood, and my dad, since I was born in '64, that was kind of the Vietnam War was going on, and he went to Vietnam. We were living in Montana at the time, and I remember my mom telling me about who my dad was, but I didn't really remember him. I didn't know who he was until he came home from Vietnam. And I just remember as a kid, I played outside a lot. We lived in Montana, and we'd go to the lakes, and we'd go fishing. And I kind of remember, there's one of these memories where I remember seeing the mountains from the water. And it was very calm, and my parents tell that story a little different, because they tell me that we were fishing in the boat, and I fell out of the boat, and I had a life jacket on, and I was floating away, is what it was. See, I don't remember that I was floating away or that I was in danger, but that's what was going on, is that I was floating away from the boat as a kid. So as a family, we camped a lot, and we were outside a lot, and we went from Montana to Arizona, to Florida, to North Dakota, to Utah, to North Dakota, and then to South America.
So, as you were young, you were traveling even when you were young?
Yeah, yep.
And are you still traveling?
Yeah, I travel quite a bit. It's not too uncommon that my wife and I would, we go see her folks on the weekend, and that's about 6 hours away, or we'll go visit other family, or a lot of times we'll just go over to Chicago or down to St. Louis or Kansas City on a weekend. And then usually at the holidays. For my wife and I both, our families aren't here in Cedar Rapids, so we usually travel to wherever our family is, and that might be Colorado, Pennsylvania, Mississippi, and sometimes then too with my sister and my brother and my dad, we'll plan trips, like where we'll go someplace. And so we'll just get together, we'll go out to a place like Maine, we'll go out to the state of Maine, and we'll spend a couple weeks, and so we'll travel to do that kind of stuff.
So what's your most favorite place to go to?
Oh man, home at the end of the day. There's a lot of places. I don't have like one favorite place, because I have so many really great memories of for different reasons of different places. I've been to every state in the union, and so I've been to like Alaska and Hawaii, and I've seen all of kind of the West Coast, the East Coast, the Gulf, all the states bordering Canada. So, and yeah, all of them. I think the unique thing about all of those and the memories that I have, the best part about those is there was some experience where I was outside, I was outdoors, I was on top of a mountain or out in the middle of a desert or on a lake, but it was that kind of stuff where there was a quiet moment where I got to just sit with my thoughts and just look at what I was looking at and just really reflect on just how cool it was.
Okay, what are some funny stories of going, like, traveling out there? Like, funny people you met, or just
Oh yeah.
interesting stories of how you got there?
Yeah. Like I said, I like my sister. She's 10 years younger than I am, but she and my brother-in-law, they do a lot of traveling with my wife and I. And we would just load up and just go places. And one summer, those guys teach at like a university, so they have the summer off, and then we're always trying to talk my wife into taking more time off from work so we can all go and do stuff. But we did a trip out west, and it was like we kind of themed it after like the Oregon Trail, you know, going west. We went out to Chimney Rock, like where a lot of wagon trains left from, and we went out to Utah and all the way out to Seattle, out to the west coast, and we just saw all the sights that wagon trains would have seen on the way going west. But we were in Salt Lake City, and I had a Chevy Astro van at the time, and it you know, you don't want stuff to go wrong on your trip, but it usually does. And I remember opening the side door on the van, and it shot right off the van out across the parking lot. And that was one of those funny moments where we laugh a lot now, but at the time I'm like, oh man, you know, because there goes the van door across the parking lot. So we had to pick it up and try to put it back on, and then so that kind of interrupts your trip because it took us a couple days. We found a dealership, and he had the part to fix. There was a broken part in there where that door is supposed to catch, so he fixed that, and so that was part of our trip. That was pretty eventful, but that stuff happens, so you have to be prepared for it when it does.
I think we're good
It's early in the morning. We're going across Utah, and it's kind of desert. You know, there's a lot of sand and dust, and everybody the sun's coming up, and it's a beautiful morning, and everybody's kind of got their eyes closed and sleeping, and I'm driving along, and I look over on the side of the road, and I see something, and sometimes it takes your brain a minute or two to process, and we're doing about 60, and I go past this, and then I hit the brakes. My brother-in-law, he's like, what? And I said, I gotta go back. And he said, well, what are we gonna go look at? And I said, I could tell you what I saw, but you're not gonna believe me until you see it for yourself. So I found a spot, turned around, and came back, and as we approached it, he could see there was something, like it was an animal that had been hit on the side of the road. And he goes, is that it? And I go, yeah, just wait for it though. And it was an antelope. It had been hit by a car or something, but it was wearing tennis shoes. And that's what I wanted him to see. And I started telling him, I said, this antelope up here, he's got tennis shoes on. And he's like, no, quit, you're lying to me. I go, no, wait. So we pull up, and right there on the side of the road is this antelope, and he had his tongues hanging out, and he's on the side of the road. Sure enough, he's got a pair of shoes on. All 4 feet. Yeah. So I did have to get my camera out and take a picture of that too. Because that's just one of those sights you don't see very often. So our thinking is too, like, okay, somebody else probably came along, saw that, and thought, how funny if we stopped and put shoes on that, you know. So, made my day. All right, there you go.
What first brought you to Metro?
You know, I finished school in California, and I knew that I knew the cost of living and that opportunities in the Midwest were plentiful. There was a lot of opportunity here, and California was pretty wild at the time. So my wife and I knew we wanted to move back to the Midwest. We came to Iowa. I was living in West Branch at the time, and I really had thought I was going to go to the University of Iowa. But it turns out I got a really good offer at Coe College to finish my license, because I had already graduated college, but I needed a license to teach in the state of Iowa. While I was here in Cedar Rapids, I started subbing quite a bit too, and I kept hearing about this Metro High School, and people were always like, oh, you don't want to go over there. And I'm like, well, why not? I kind of thought Metro sounded kind of cool. So then, when I was finishing my license, I was doing a lot of classes and programming for nonprofits here in town, a group called Alternative Services. And they had contracts with juvenile court, and they wanted to provide programming in schools. So Mary Cruz and I actually started coming over here to Metro High School, and we were doing a class called Get a Job. And we would and it was a class you could take in your schedule. And what we did was we talked about job skills, and we filled out applications, and we went out and we interviewed, and it was a lot of fun. And even then, I knew that I really wanted to be at Metro full time. And when I got that opportunity, John Humphreys was our principal at the time, and there was going to be a position here in the Baketeria, and with teaching some history if I wanted, and just some other opportunities. So it worked out really well.
And so what also keeps you here?
Well, the thing that I really love about being here at Metro High School is that I personally have all kinds of interests, things that I like to do. And Metro High School gives me the opportunity to do all of those things. I really like running the bakery and the Baketeria. Students, come to us, and part of Metro is unique in the sense that we do have opportunities to actually get up and do stuff in the classroom. And being in that bakery is one of those. And then for students who aren't in the Baketeria or taking that class with us, Foods Math, where else can you walk through your high school and get a hot chocolate chip cookie? Or, somebody comes around with those and brings them to you. So that's a lot of fun to do. The Career Connections class, where we can connect juniors and seniors to college and career, is a fantastic opportunity. And then, like for Tara and I, to be able to take students out and meet people in this community, and to connect students to colleges and universities, it's exciting, and it's fun to help everybody see that there is a potential future, a possibility, and then connect to that. Then, especially the outdoor ed programs. I knew when I was coming over, when I was doing programming for Alternative Services, that I really wanted to go on one of these canoe trips. But I didn't really have that opportunity when I was working for those guys. So the very first year that I was here, I was talking to the guys that ran the outdoor ed program, and they said, well, would you be interested in going on a canoe trip? And I was absolutely fired up. I didn't know that I'd get to go that first year. And I haven't missed a canoe trip since that first year when I started. So it was pretty spectacular. So all of that stuff, the photography, being able to go to all the events that you guys participate in and take pictures, and the little movies that we make of that kind of stuff. I like doing that. So I get to do all kinds of crazy stuff at Metro, and I really enjoy it.
So what are some of the changes, like the policies and different things you've seen over the years since you've been here?
Well, I think one of the most notable things is when we went away from our half-day schedule to our full-day schedule. Used to be here at Metro, a student would just come for either an AM or a PM schedule. And so it was almost like having two Metros. And for us as teachers too, a lot of times the way we ran our schedule, teaching classes, is I would teach a set of classes in the morning, and then I'd just repeat that same class for the afternoon. And then two, it used to be that a lot of us didn't have like one room that was our classroom. We moved around a lot. And I don't know if that was good or bad. It did allow us as teachers, it kind of forced us actually to have a lot of interaction with each other around the building. And that's one thing I've really seen change, is for us as a school and as a staff, teachers who teach in a room stay there a lot, and don't get out maybe and mingle as much as they used to with everybody as a group. Some other things that kind of changed, we used to have our schedule Monday through Thursday, and there was no school on Friday. The district they wanted to do this professional development for teachers on Wednesdays, and so that really challenged us to really think about our schedule and to change that up. So that's why, like for you guys, we have those half days on Wednesday, because every couple weeks that's a day where we're doing professional trainings of some kind. We're working in groups around the district, or we're working here in the building. And so that really changed our culture, where I used to, like with my advisees on Fridays, I'd go visit your families, go visit you at work, and track you down, that kind of stuff. Then one of the others that's really big was the smoking. It used to be teachers and students would stand right outside the door and smoke if they were smokers. And we didn't really have a break or a break time, but during there were moments that people would take 5 minutes before, like the start of maybe the afternoon, or there were just sections in our schedule that allowed us to have like a couple minutes, and that was just kind of an accepted like smoke break time. The school district was moving to a policy for all of its employees where the district was going to be a smoke-free zone, a smoke-free workplace altogether. And so we knew that, and we got together and met with the superintendent and started talking about what the smoking policy should be here at Metro. With the school nurse, we got together and we went downtown and we visited. And they were surprised that as a school we were talking about going ahead and adopting that no smoking policy. They were worried about how to move forward with that. But we told them that we really wanted to have a plan and be ahead of that. And of course, since that meant no smoking for staff members, that would also mean no smoking for students on any school campus or grounds. And that's why everybody started going across the street. And you know, that really shifted, you know, some of the structure of our day. And again, it's not that it's a good thing or a bad thing. I wish nobody was smoking, because we know that's not good for you, right? But it's not a reason to kick you out of school either if somebody is having a cigarette across the street. I'd much rather see you graduate high school, finish your education, than worry about whether or not you're smoking underage. So. Flatten up. All right, now, does that dough feel different to you?
No.
Really? Okay. Like when you're scooping that, it doesn't feel any different to you? Okay. I'm critiquing it. It feels different than the first time. You see how, like in the side, you see how hard it is? Like when you scrape it, it should be just soft, like creamy butter. So like you put in the peanut butter.
Yeah.
And you put in the
Crisco, everything I did the exact time as I did the first time when I walked over my shoulder.
Okay. And it doesn't feel different to you? Okay. I don't know.
Does it feel different to you?
Okay.
Still infecting the other
So
ones.
let's go ahead and we'll start wiping all this stuff down.
I didn't
But
do it already.
well, I mean, we'll do
I know,
all. But anyway, I think you're right. Let's go throw that in the sink. You just throw it in there. Don't worry about it. You leave it there. I'll get it. No. It all kind of looks the same there. See. Yep. So you guys, what we're going to do is let's just start wiping everything down. If you get like a dry towel, we're going to start wiping all these counters down into the trash can. Any of these dishes, we can wash those up. That's super.
Baking on Wednesday.
You know, it won't be anything this week. You know, like everything we do this week will be for the bake sale that we're going to go to on Thursday. Because Donna,
What, getting cookies in here around?
well, the day we do this bake sale, we'll just take everything, we'll load it up in the van, and we'll go drive it over there. The place that we're going to go sell this stuff.
Hey,
Yeah,
class.
we're going to take the whole class. We'll get in the vans.
Well, I have an interview like Thursday after school, so I'm like, we'll be back by after school.
Yeah. Jeez. That's some perfection right there. Chocolate chip perfection.
You just gonna laugh?
No. Hey, well, good luck to you
Are you recording this
on
stuff
that.
right now?
A little bit.
Yeah?
Yeah, they're making a movie about me. It's gonna be big. It's gonna be huge.
So what she just said was on there?
No. Well, maybe some of it. But if I'm wearing the microphone, it's probably just mostly me. So, what did you say about your teacher? It'd be like,
He's pretty awesome.
yeah.
Several years before we came to Metro High School, we used to work for a human service agency.
How long ago was that?
Well, Shannon and I have been here for 15 years full time, and I think it would probably be close to 18 years ago is when I first met him. And I met him over the phone. He was actually setting up an interview for me to move from Des Moines to Cedar Rapids to start working with him. And apparently by the time I was done with the conversation, he thought I sounded pretty cool, so he hired me in his mind before even meeting me. Thank you, Shannon.
Tell me about how it was to work at Disneyland.
So when I was living in California, I was going to college. I was married. My wife and I were living out there, and Disneyland was just right down the block from where we lived, where our apartment was. And so when we moved out there and I started looking for a part-time job to go with my college schedule, it just seemed like a natural. I'm like, well, they were hiring over there, so I went and I applied, and their schedule, like when they need people, was perfect with my college schedule, because I worked every weekend, and so I didn't have class, and then a lot of times I didn't have class on like a Tuesday, Thursday, so I could work, and then all the holidays. So I've probably been to Disneyland 658 times. You know, people say like, you know, it's a once in a lifetime trip, but yeah, I've been there a few times. I get up and go every day, and it was a lot of fun. You get to see lots of people. You get to see lots of famous people, you know, in Hollywood who bring their kids, or they would come and they would shoot scenes. At the time, Michael Eisner is a guy who Disney hired to take over the company, and he was doing a lot of work to change the company to make it profitable. And they had opened up Disney was redoing their movies, Disney movies, but then they started a studio called Touchstone, where they were making movies, and we used to get passes to go to those movies, or you know, a lot of times they'd make the movies in areas that we could go to. That was kind of neat to see. And then one night, Michael Eisner, now he's one of these guys, he's a multimillionaire. They paid him tens of millions of dollars all the time, but he was coming to a special in Disney. There's an area that looks like New Orleans. It's where the Pirates of the Caribbean are. And there's some restaurants that are not open to the public. They're kind of exclusive, and they're upstairs in the back of the New Orleans area. And he was coming for a dinner there and a meeting. And I was in a hurry, and I was in the back part of the park, and I had this big cart that we used to load with garbage cans, and it was pretty heavy. And I was going way too fast. I was running with it. I went around the corner, and I just missed Michael Eisner, like by that much. And he was in a hurry going this way, and I was going that way, and I didn't stop. I just kept going because I recognized him. I knew who it was. And I'm like, man, I almost killed him. And at the time, he wasn't real popular with a lot of people. So I thought, well, some people would have liked me, some people would have hated me. But at the time in the 80s, you used to be able to go to Disney and it would cost you about $19 for a park pass. He's the guy who figured it out that families would pay like $50 and $60 to go to Disney. And that's when prices started going up, and yeah.
So what all jobs did you do there?
I did most of the special events. Anytime there was a parade, I worked on a crew where when Disney has a parade during the day down the main street kind of stuff, they have huge cannons where they shoot off confetti. And we would follow up right behind the parade, and we would clean up any garbage that the people left and all the confetti. And we had these giant like vacuum cleaners. It had this huge hopper in the front, and we'd make like a V in the street, and we always would joke about like these things would suck up small children. You know, if you left your kids, we'd get them. But it would just pick everything up, and so they would have a parade, and they would just litter the place, and within like 5 minutes we'd have it spotless. You'd never know that there had been a parade there ever. That was in the 80s, and that was in the heyday of Michael Jackson. And Michael used to come into the park in the morning. And so like when I would open, he was like one of the first people there. And he would always come with those little kids like you'd see in the news. They were always talking about he'd have one or two of those kids with him. And he always wanted to ride around in a wheelchair. And he had that little surgical mask that he'd wear, and he had a little hat. And they'd be pushing him around. And he loved to go ride like Space Mountain and Pirates of the Caribbean. And it was just funny because you'd be in the park and you'd be doing your thing, and then you'd be like, oh, hey, Michael, you know. He's like, hey, what's up? So that was just kind of one of those fun parts, too, of the job. You get to see people like that in the park sometimes.
Tell us about your experience of dislocating your shoulder.
Oh, man. Now, see, Mary probably did tell you that stuff. So, now, we haven't had a lot of snow here lately, but I keep thinking we're going to get a chance to take like a ski trip or a snowboard trip. But I started snowboarding back in 1982. And even at the house right now, I have like an original Burton snowboard. When they first started making those with like metal edges, I've got one of those. That's kind of where I started learning to snowboard. But here in Iowa, I usually go up to Galena to go ride. And sometimes I go with all my friends, and then there was just one of these nights nobody was able to go. And so I thought, well, I'll just go up there by myself. And so I was up there riding, and I came over, I've been riding just all over the place, and I had seen a spot where it looked like nobody had been riding along the tree line, and on the chairlift going up, I could see it was all just open. Nobody had been in there, and I thought, well, this will be the last run of the night. I'm going to go down through there. And I got into the snow, and it's pretty steep in there, and I'm going as fast as I can go. And it's one of those moments too where my speed is such that I'm almost out of control because I'm going so fast. And I'm like, oh, I just got to hang on until I get to the flat, and then I can check my speed, and it'll be fine, and I'll come out of there. And right in the bottom of that, when I was coming out of that, there was all these big ice chunks, and it was more like a ramp. And I'm like, oh, this isn't going to be good. And I tried to turn, and as I was turning, it just launched me up off the side of this thing. And I got so high in the air too, and when I came down, I was right under the chairlift. I could almost see people on the chairlift. I'm like, hey, how you doing? And I crashed and burned, and I rolled and I rolled and I rolled. And then when I came to a stop, it's that funny moment when it's like everything's quiet, and I sit up, and I'm happy to be alive. I'm looking around, and I realize that both of my arms are out of the socket, you know, that I've dislocated both of my shoulders, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. And then I'm sitting there trying to figure out what do I think about what I'm going to do. And people on the chairlift going by, they were like, dude, that was awesome. They're like, are you okay? Yeah, I'm great, you know. And as you relax, you know, your muscles and your tendons are such that they're kind of elastic. And I've dislocated one of my shoulders before, but if you'll just relax, the one kind of, it set back in on its own. Now it's still sore and it really hurts, you know, and you don't want to mess with it a whole lot. But I couldn't get the other one to go back in, and so I kept thinking too that I really wanted to not ride in an ambulance to the hospital. And I was going to try to figure out a way to get myself back to the top of the hill and drive myself to the hospital, because I figured at this point I needed to get somebody to set that. But by the time I got back to the top, I worked my way back up. The arm was still in pretty bad shape. There was no way I was going to be able to drive, and they did have to get an ambulance, and then you feel stupid. They take you over to the clinic, and then when you go to the clinics, there in Galena, they don't, like overnight like that, they don't keep like a full-time doctor. They have somebody come in like from Chicago who had been there, and they didn't have an anesthesiologist, so they didn't want to knock me out. They didn't want to put me out and then work on my arm. So they're like, well, we're going to give you some Advil, and we're going to have the nurse stand on you, and I'm going to pull on your arm. And so I thought, well, that doesn't sound like a good idea, but that's what they did. And they just kept yanking on the arm because they want to pull it out and get it around to come back in where it goes. And they tried that for a while and it wasn't working. So then they wound up calling over to Dubuque to get an ambulance to come and take me over to the hospital so they could put me out. So, and at that point I'm thinking, well, I better call my wife too, because, you know, I wasn't going to be in any shape to drive home. So then I'm like, hey, by the way, what are you doing? Maybe you want to come up to Dubuque and drive me home, because that just wasn't going to happen. So that's what we did, and that's what happened. So.
Can you tell us a little about your house you built?
Yeah, about 9 years ago. You know, I'd really been interested in like a log home. And my wife and I had been saving. We'd been talking about like buying a house kind of stuff. And we went to over by Davenport. There was a log home company that was here from Tennessee, and what they were doing was having like a public auction where they're selling off packages, like you buy the whole kit for the house kind of thing. And the one that we were interested in, nobody else was bidding on. And somebody was bidding, and I started looking around the room, and it was my wife. And it kind of shocked me, and she's like, let's do this. And so it was kind of exciting, but we bought this kit, and then we found a piece of land out by the river, and then so we started building this log home, and it's worked out pretty well for us.
Well, I met Shannon here at Metro about 16 years ago, and I've been lucky enough to work with him for the last 15 years.
And what do you do?
We do foods math together. We bake in the bakery. We have bake sales. We do a lot of math related to cooking, credit cards, loans, costing out recipes, just lots of different things related to math.
And what do you like working with him?
Well, I love working with Shannon because he's always so fun and enthusiastic, and he's always looking for new things to do. And we try different things, and we have bake sales, and it's just a fun time of my day.
City. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and